On July 26, the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe of North Dakota filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for violating the National Historic Preservation Act and other laws after the agency issued final permits for a massive crude oil pipeline that the tribe says threatens the safety of its water supply. The complaint filed in federal court says the Corps ignored the tribe's concerns and fast-tracked the permit process that allows the pipeline to run through ancestral lands and pass within a half-mile of its current reservation. The pipeline in question would run under the Missouri River, which feeds water to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. The Standing Rock Sioux have led a national campaign to draw attention to the issue. The Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of the Interior, and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation have all recommended that the Corps revise its environmental assessment and open up a second public comment period. Tribal citizens have come from all over the country to make up the now nearly 4,000 people that have set up the Camp of the Sacred Stones in North Dakota as part of the Respect Our Water protest initiative. As of Monday, 87 tribes from across the U.S. have sent resolutions or letters of support, including the Muscogee Creek Nation. And now we're joined here in studio with National Council Representative Mr. Mark Randolph, who is the sponsor of the resolution that the Muscogee Creek Nation has now signed in support of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. Mr. Randolph, thank you so much for being with us here today in the studio.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Great. Now, first off, our first question would just be, what led you to the point where you and some of your colleagues started talking about this, and then ultimately you sponsoring legislation or a resolution in support of the Standing Rock?
Well, what caught my eye was YouTube and Facebook, and I seen at one point I saw young protesters who want to be called the Protectors, which I like, and I started reading up on it. And one of the reports said, talked about the human remains, and I immediately thought of Hickory Ground. And I began to wonder, and I thought, how can we help them? You know, how can we support them? How can we advocate? Because what happens to them eventually happens to us, and vice versa.
I looked at that, and we had discussed earlier as well the similarities. I think that's a great point you make, because you do see things that we've dealt with in the past. Also, you could think about maybe what this means for our future too.
Right. Right. Yeah, you know, just the unity. I think we've been subjugated, you know, way too long, and there's strength in numbers. And I think even with Hickory Ground, I'm hoping that something along the same caliber will come around, and people will look at the principle of the matter of Hickory Ground. First, you know, it's not against nation and nation. Yeah. It's the principle of the desecration of our ancestors. And so, you know, when I thought about it personally, I thought it's our duty, you know, as stewards of the land, the natural resources, and to make sure our ancestors are respected and left alone.
When you look at the resolution, it definitely is in support. Do you know of any plans that we may have to send actual aid? I've seen supplies go in there, things like that. Are there any plans in the work from Creek Nation on that?
Well, I did hear that there was some younger guys that were wanting to take some tribal vehicles and take some supplies up there. And there's been talk about possibly even doing a bill for some financial assistance. So there's some things people are talking about. I don't know. I know they came to the speaker about taking supplies, and then they were going to look at clearance through the chief, so we'll see.
Specifically with their water supply, you know, Representative Randolph, we've seen just in our own state here how important and how involved these things can get when we're talking about water rights and whatnot. For Native American tribes, us Choctaws and now Standing Rock Sioux, mineral rights, water, the land is so important. This directly affects their water supply. Do you see that as why maybe other tribes are jumping in too?
Well, you know, I believe so, but I believe it's also a human thing. Yeah. It's not just Native. I mean, it's going to affect, it could, you know, well, when there is a spill and it poisons the water for Standing Rock, it's also going to poison the water for millions of people who are non-Native. So this is something that affects everyone. And so I'm glad to see that we have a lot of allies also, you know.
From a council perspective, and I would just ask you your personal experience because you've been a councilman when we have dealt with the porch issue, things like that. There's always the side that's trying to, in this case, it's the pipeline company. In the case of the porch band, it's the actual tribe building the casino. So there's always that side that you have to talk to and reason with them and try to get your perspective in a way that is understood by all parties. Are you seeing some similarities here with what maybe that pipelines are doing and really how they're maybe in some cases not even consulting the tribes?
Sure. You know, I was reminded of a native proverb this morning that says, only after the last fish has been eaten, only after the last river has been poisoned, that man will realize that money cannot be eaten. And then I saw one of the young protectors. He had a little sign and it says, "You cannot drink oil." And so I think it boils down to money, you know, and you can't eat money and you can't drink oil.
Right. Absolutely, that's a great point. And you look at what's happening too. How would is there a resolution to this, do you believe? I mean, do you see any kind of ending to this to where everybody gets what they want?
I would hope so. You know, I would hope that our prayers and our sacrifices would, I know they won't go unheard from above, but, you know, here on this earth, I would hope that people would, you know, listen with their hearts and that they wouldn't be persuaded all the time by money, because we have to look to the futures. And our ancestors were smart enough to look 7 generations ahead. Now we're going to have to, because if we don't, there will be no 7 generations ahead. They won't have no water. They won't have no natural resources. We will have allowed this world to poison itself.
Of course, anything that happens with the National Council, you're talking to your colleagues, you're gauging interest on different things. What's been the response from other members of the council to this resolution? It seems like as a nation we're really united on this.
Right. You know, a lot of times you got to do a lot of due diligence and some politicking behind the scenes, but this time it was really easy. You know, everyone seemed to be in agreement on, you know, same page, and there was no discussion against it. I heard nothing. Everything was positive, so it was really great.
Is there anything you foresee coming out of this to where maybe this issue helps other Native issues as far as when we're dealing with historical preservation sites and whatnot? Sure,
I think as far as becoming one voice, like I said, we've been subjugated way too long, and I think with the strength of numbers, if we were to be able to get the same support with our hickory ground, saving hickory ground, I think we would see a lot more victories. I think we've got to pull together. This is like a catalyst that I hope that it will continue, and that the tribal nations will keep coming together and showing their strength in numbers. And there's power, great power in prayer. And so, yeah, I think we have victories ahead of us.
I wonder if you've, the same way as a lot of folks when we see issues like this, wonder to yourself why certain issues become bigger maybe or more prominent than, say, our hickory ground issue. Certainly there hasn't been a New York Times story on our hickory ground issue, but there has been on this one. Do you wonder yourself why certain issues become a little louder than others?
I did wonder that, and I thought, you know, I'm not sure, you know, really how to answer that. I'm hoping that our time is coming. That's all I can really say to that.
Do you have anything else to add, sir, that you'd like everyone to know?
No, you know, I'm just, I'm encouraged and I'm inspired, and I keep following them, you know, what's going on over in Standing Rock, and I hope that something really good happens. And today, you know, a decision will be rendered whether they're going to stop the pipeline or if it's going to keep going. So hope and pray, you know, they stop it. But that's all.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time today. You also appeared on Muscogee Radio on behalf of Muscogee Media. We want to thank you for that as well. And giving your input here today has been very valuable to our listeners, our viewers. And thank you for the time, Mr. Randolph.
Oh, thank you.
You bet.